Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for coming today. We are very excited to have our guest with us today. Before we get going, I'd like to say thank you to some folks that we always like to say thank you to. We want to say thanks, first of all, to brassandwinds.com, Quinn the Eskimo Company. When we are looking for brass or wind instruments, we always check with brassandwinds.com first. They're fantastic people. They've always been there for us, and we wanted to say thank you to them. We appreciate you. It is 1994. I have been told, having just become a jazz musician, that there is good music happening at a club called the French Quarter in Cobb County. So I go to the French Quarter, and there is a woman with a little jazz ensemble named Gwen Hughes. She is doing a fantastic job. She is very courteous to me and invites me to come up and play. I am terrified, but I come up and play a tune. Then I go sit down, my hands shaking, and she continues to do a fantastic job engaging the audience, being nice to the musicians. And then she does this fantastic rendition of Get Here, which I have never forgotten. That woman was Gwen Hughes, and that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. I am so thrilled to introduce you to Gwen Hughes. Gwen?
Hey.
How are you?
Wow, that was awesome, Adam. That was completely awesome. I had not remembered that we met at the French Quarter Suites. Wow. And I used to, oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. We've known each other a long time.
We have about 25 years. And although I am no longer in the jazz scene, I left the jazz scene about the end of the 90s. You continued, and you've made yourself a presence. I think probably the best compliment I can give you is that when Aretha Franklin passed, you were one of the people, I forget which station it was, I think maybe WCLK or WABE. They chose you among other people to talk about Aretha because they knew that you had the cred to discuss what she was about, and you did such
That was a huge honor. Yeah, that was Rose Scott. That was a huge honor. Yeah.
You did an admirable job. You talked so well about her and with such passion and information. And so I wanted to let folks know who you are and what you do. Would you tell us, let's go back from 1994. Let's go back in time. The part before I knew you. Tell me, who were you then and how did you get started?
Oh my goodness. I was classically trained actually, and I went to school, and I'm still really glad for that because it means I can read music and I understand tessituras and where voices lie and what they can and cannot do, what they should and should not do, which is not to say that I haven't broken those rules. But I was classically trained, went to Furman University on a music scholarship, but actually abdicated on that so I could study overseas. And I studied in England for theater, actually. And then that led to really sort of concentrating on musical theater once I got out of school. I was in the very first production of the 1940s radio hour at Theater in the Square when it moved to its current location. It had been in a little train depot before that. That was in the 80s. But then while I was doing theater, my personality, it's a blessing and a curse, is that I like moving forward. And I like trying new things as opposed to continuing to do the same thing. So jazz became an outgrowth of the musical theater because musical theater felt like doing the same thing over and over again. And jazz felt very liberating and explorative. And one of the reasons why I got into jazz and got into working with live bands was because so many of the standards that we all matriculated on in the real book are musical theater shows, musical theater songs. So I knew a lot of them already. And so then it was easy to just start to sit in at Cafe 290. Remember Cafe 290 and Lark and the Dove. And then when I got the French Quarter Suites gig, which was my first leader's job, I just knew a lot of tunes. And I knew I could hire side guys like you who had learned the same tunes coming up. And together we could create something new every night on stage. And but then jazz, I came into jazz through the back door because, like I said, I was a musical theater person, and I've always loved pop music too. I'm a Beatles encyclopedia. I love the Beatles. I love pop music. So jazz in itself felt a little confining. So then I feel like I have moved out of jazz. A lot of people call me a jazz performer, but I don't really think of myself as that anymore. I sort of think of myself as a pop singer who sings jazz. And my stuff always has jazz elements in it because that's what I love. But now I'm in a new phase of just, and the songs I write are very pop centered with jazz elements. So thank you.
Great.
That's where
we are going to talk about your songs later. I want to talk about this moment that you transitioned from a singer to a leader. You being a woman may be a part of this discussion, and you may be, being a woman may not be, but women leaders have a different situation than male leaders do. Do you want to talk about the moment you transitioned?
Yeah. I was, a chick singer in other people's bands, and I just recognized that I could probably work more if I was the one booking the gigs, but I also knew that I needed people around me to make me look better because I was still sort of green. And quite honestly, the whole woman thing I have never felt like it was an issue for me. I felt like possibly being Caucasian as time passed especially in Atlanta, and I'm okay with that. But I
you might not have some cred. Is as far as the cred goes?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. My cred's other places, and I can pay tribute, but I can't be the real deal. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I do what I do, and I do what I do pretty well. But Atlanta in itself really highlights, diversity. And I love that about it. And I tried to be a part of that coming up with my band as well, trying to combine everybody that was in the music scene. But to answer your question, I never felt like being a woman was a big deal. I'm also an oldest child. And I think that eldest children just feel like that they run the world, and that they feel like they can just do anything. And
laughing as an oldest child here. Laughing.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's been, I just think I always expected it to just go the way I wanted it to, and it certainly hasn't all the time.
Oh, okay. It's from my perspective, it has. Tell us what's the illusion shattered here? I see a woman who is basically been touring the world with her bands for like years. So how hasn't it gone the way you wanted it?
I always wanted to be really famous. I think I got into this to be a star because I wanted attention. I'm an Enneagram 3, which means we seek all of our identity from other people's approval of us and admiration of us. Uh-huh. And that is a very shallow way to live your life if you live your whole life that way. Right. And I'm very much tried to move away from it. But yeah, I loved being the center of attention. I love having applause. And music, more than anything else, just gives you that automatically. And it's a blessing we take for granted a lot. But I didn't become a star. I didn't get the record deal that I wanted. I got one later in my career, and it wasn't terribly satisfying. But so then I think I had to recalibrate and say, okay, well, what are my goals if I'm not? And then when you get older, you certainly have to let go of some of the dreams that you had when you were younger. And it's just been constant recalibration. Europe was great I toured Europe for 10 or 12 years, and we're going back hopefully this fall. They haven't canceled it yet. we continue to go back, but not with the regularity that we did. And so you just learn to accept that everything's a chapter, and then you move on to the next thing. And this is a very interesting time, not only the pandemic for me, but just, becoming an older performer. We've been through it, right? We've known each other 25 years and I've been doing it. What does my career look like now? And what do I want to do with that as a yeoman musician? I've never been a teacher. I've never been an educator. I celebrate music educators, and I tried to do that a lot when I was on the Grammy board. I was part of the Grammy Foundation, which is all about the music educators of the United States. What am I going to do with my career now? And that's what I'm looking for, actually, as we speak.
Well, good. I'm glad. If you don't mind, we can talk about that a little bit more. You have had, by many people's standards, a career that looks very successful. And I understand that you're not the huge star that you said you wanted to be, and I can totally relate to that. I understand that. And yet, some people who, if they had the dream they wanted to be a big star, they wouldn't, if they didn't get there, they'd give it up. They'd say, this is exhausting. That's right. And you have not. So what is success for you? What has kept you going?
That's a beautiful question. And that's something that I think about all the time. And yeah, I think success is just feeling satisfied with what you've done and accepting what you didn't get to do that maybe you thought you wanted. And I also just think that life works out the way it's supposed to. I'm pretty spiritual, and like right now, really the goal is how to combine what I know how to do, which is music, with something that benefits somebody or something other than myself. I need income. We all need income. This is my job. But how do I do that to where it has more purpose? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think success is just feeling satisfied. And I'm not an easily satisfied person, which is great in one level because it keeps me going to search for something new. I like learning. If I'm not learning something, I probably don't stay terribly interested, unfortunately. So I think I've achieved most everything I wanted. And the things that I didn't get that I thought I wanted, I don't even remember what many of them are right now. So,
let's take a look at Gwen Hughes, the performer, right now. Just take a minute to look at a clip of you performing in front of people with your band, and maybe we can talk about that person that you are when you're in that realm and what you've learned from that. Does it sound good?
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks.
Let's take a look.
Hey, y'all! How you doing? We are the Hitmakers, and this is our show, American Gold. You didn't have to love me like you did, but you did, yes you did. And I thank you. You didn't have to hold me like you did, but you did, yes you did. And I thank you. If you took your love somewhere else, I wouldn't know what it's like to be loved to death. You got me feeling things I never felt.
This is so good, I had to holler for help.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Yeah. Think that you might go let yourself be free. Let's go back, let's go back, let's go way on, way back when. Freedom, freedom,
So that's fantastic. There you are. What's it like to watch yourself doing that?
I enjoy it. Mainly because, you know, the band is me and my friends. I enjoy it when I think it looks and sounds okay.
Yeah.
So when it doesn't, I don't enjoy it at all. But that particular show was a good show. So
Yeah, a highly polished performance. You're looking great. You know your moves. You got your band, and they're doing their thing. The music is hopping. Everybody looks like they're having fun. So,
yeah, thanks.
how'd you get there? I mean, that's some people think that that's just what happens when you get up on stage with a bunch of great musicians. That it just kind of happens, and it isn't. You worked to get to that spot. What did you learn to get there?
I learned that you have to be clear about what you want, and you have to make it clear to the people that are working with you and for you. But you also have to let them be able to express themselves. So it's a dance between leading and collaborating and following. It's all three. Music, and you know that, being a great musician yourself. In jazz, that's what you do. You listen, you lead, you follow. You step back and you let somebody else do it. And that particular show is all about that. It's all about Southern gold record artists. So it's all pop music, but it has a jazz sort of undercurrent to it the whole time. And that's just something I love doing. I mean, we do Sam and Dave and we do Allman Brothers, but you're just going to hear great musicians having a good time. And that's what I go for is taking the music seriously, but not myself seriously. So, and the people I work with are the same way. So to answer your question, I think what you learn is that you have to be clear, communicate clearly to the people that you work with, be reliable, do what you say you're going to do, pay decent wages, pay when you say you're going to pay. Like I always pay on the night of the gig, and then if I'm not getting paid, I chase my own money. I feel like part of a leader's job is to be the bank for the guys that work for you, right? So I've just learned you just have to be clear and open and willing to say when you're wrong, but also to stand up for what you want.
That's
and to
great.
listen. You just got to listen.
Well, the reason I was smiling a little bit while you were talking is because you've described yourself as not really a jazz musician, and we showed a clip of you not doing any jazz songs, and the first thing you do was you make a jazz analogy. I think that's wonderful. So there's clearly you are jazz at your core, even though you don't consider yourself a jazz musician. Talk about that.
Yeah. I guess because I'm scared of the jazz police. You know?
They're not watching this. Come on.
You know, one of my favorite quotes of all time is Keith Jarrett. He said, people who call themselves jazz experts are probably, I'm going to get it wrong, are probably not very good, because jazz is inherently about breaking the rules.
Mm.
And if you are saying that jazz lives in a box, then you're probably not a great jazz musician. And that has always given me hard, because, I mean, come on, it's Keith Jarrett. I just love the freedom of jazz and the explorative nature of it. But I do think there's is nomenclature the right word? You know, just the way it's become academic, you know, and sort of shoved into this way that this is, you learn these modes and you do this, and this is how you solo, and it's pentatonic. Oh, you're doing pentatonic. And I sort of understand all that because I play piano a little bit, but singers don't think that way. And come on, Ella Fitzgerald didn't go to school to learn to do what she did. She worked with Chick Webb. Sarah Vaughan worked with Earl Hines. You know, you learn it from being around it and listening to it. And yeah, there's something just, I think it is at my core. I just love how liberating it is. And when I was performing in Ljubljana, Slovenia a few years ago, this old man was sitting on the front row of this museum gig and just smiling while we sang. And when we were done, he came over and he said, during the war, we listened to American radio across the lines because it was jazz, and that was the sound of freedom. That was he said it in Slovenian, liberacion or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. It's freedom to be who you are. And a lot of people will say that you don't sound like jazz. And I've had to be okay with that.
And I want to clarify something because I'm in your camp. I totally understand what you're saying.
I know you are.
I want to be sure, because I know you and I both know this, but when we speak about jazz in this way, it can set some people up for a misunderstanding. And I want to be careful. When we're talking about a non-academic approach to jazz, we are not talking about not knowing what you're doing. These musicians that you're discussing, Chick Webb, Ella Fitzgerald, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, they were very eloquent and could talk with extreme clarity about what they were doing, even in musical terms. But it wasn't the same kind of academic limitation that you're discussing. It wasn't about what you can't do. It was, I think, more about what you can do. And so they combined a really serious understanding and a self-study and a study of other people with, now that you know it, what you're going to do with it, as opposed to, well, now you've got everything in your box, you're all set to go, go play jazz. And they were never done figuring stuff out.
Yeah. And I just think that's what's so crazy about where jazz came from, is this was the stratum of society that was kept down and kept out of education, and through all the systemic racism that was set up in our country. And yet they came up with some of the most complex mathematical music out there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they thought about it that way or not. I know when I remember seeing the sign and something when Roy Eldridge was playing, he's a bebop artist, and he put up a sign that said, no dancing to this music, because he was coming out of swing where everybody danced. So I think, everybody's got an opinion and everybody wants to put boundaries on things. Maybe that's just the human nature, but they want to protect what they know and what they have done. But yeah, I think you're right. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to study, and you have to practice. Gosh, you have to practice. Nobody springs forth being a good musician. There's just nobody. Sports and music, you can't fake it.
Right.
You gotta be good.
Yeah, even Joey DeFrancesco, who scares the heck out of me, he just started studying when he was 2, that's all. But he did study.
Gosh, he swings. Boy, he swings hard.
Crazy. Well, so let's take this jazz outlook and let's move it to a different part of your aspect. Like, there's the Gwen Hughes that knows how to put on a great show for people, knows what the rules of performance are, knows what it takes to make the money and make people happy. And then there's Gwen Hughes, who releases these albums that are just these wonderlands of just interesting stuff. Like, if I wanted to advise you as a business person, hey, you want to make a lot of money with your albums, pick yourself a genre, stick with it, figure out what you want to do, and do a lot of those albums. Get yourself an identity. No way.
Guilty.
Your albums are just crazy. Each album is just filled with different genres, arrangements of songs like I'm trying to think of the Eagles song you did,
Lion Eyes,
and The Time of the Season, where you just would not.
Thank you, Adam.
Where did you get these changes? And you're just fearless in this. It's like, I'm gonna make an analogy, and you're gonna blush, but I'm thinking like about Prince, right? Here's a guy. I know, but I'm thinking the same spirit applies here, right? Here's a guy that comes up, and and he's dressing how he wants. He's mixing soul and rock and roll and jazz and electronica like he wants. And there's no way you're going to classify him, and he doesn't care. He's like, well, you make a genre after me. this is who I am. And if you like it, great. And people do. And I think you're doing the same thing. It's pretty cool.
Wow. I have nothing to say. I'm speechless.
Well, let me help you.
Thank you.
What in the world are you thinking as you're doing this? Is that what-
I think because then when you realize I'm not going to ever, once you let go of like trying to be what everyone wants to be, which is what I've done with my cover bands, then I used recording as a way to try to find myself and my own voice. And unfortunately, or fortunately, my recording is all about exploration and not staying in the same place. And I know that, and it means I can't be darn well classified. And I've had publicity people and labels say all along, like, well, what are you? And I'm like, I'm just having a good time. I don't know. And yeah, I think that's what I've always used recording as like a way to find myself and my own voice, and writing too.
Yeah, songwriting too, because you're writing a lot of your own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I don't think of myself as a prolific writer. You know, I mean, some people write, that's who they are. They call themselves a songwriter. And I don't do that. I'm a vocalist who writes, and because I love interpreting other people's songs. There's a lot of great songs out there now, and I've always said, especially in live performance, you do your own, but you do a lot of your originals, but then you need to do covers, because that's when you'll show what great musicians you are, because people will know the songs and then they'll hear you play them, hopefully in a fresh way.
Yeah.
And, that's what I love.
One of my favorite moments of your songs is when I went to see you at Eddie's Attic with Steve Cunningham, and you did a wonderful show, including the song I couldn't get out of my head, the one that fooled them all. I'm still waiting for a recording of that show. You have it somewhere on some cassette tape, I know. But let's talk about a song like The One Who Fooled Them All. What are you doing?
Oh, thank you. Well, that was one. Most of my songs come from real experiences and real moments. And this was, I was at the hairdresser and between boyfriends. And the hairdresser said, all right, I want you to think of I'm going to put the conditioner on your hair, and I want you to think of your boyfriend while it takes. And my cat just came out on the deck. And I was like, well, which one? Because I never really had, until I married my husband, I hadn't had too many successful relationships. And that's where that came from, actually. And I wrote a whole song on it. And then the chorus is all about all the different aspects of the different guys that I'd known and dated. And
is the
I love that song.
Is The One Who Fooled Them All kind of like the one who wins, or is that? Yeah.
Actually, it also rhymed.
Yeah, right. Well, I have a wonderful clip. You recently released a song, You Make Me Feel Like Candy, and you did an incredible video with it. Do you mind if I share that with people right now so that they can hear one of your songs a little bit? It's just about a minute's worth and the video is also something interesting to see. So I'm going to share that right now.
Thank you.
Stumbling through a first draft of my part. You know the story, you know the cost, you know the secret of the innocence we love. I make you feel like painting with the colors locked inside, revealing what you never said before we learn to hide. Take me out to western scenes and never turn off the car. We got a lot of driving to do to find out who we are. If I loved like this before, now please excuse.
Okay, so I'm going to take a chance here by broaching a subject that may make you uncomfortable. You may not want to talk about it, and if that's the case, we'll just take it out. But that is a very sexy video, and you have talked about being older as an older performer, and sometimes there's an issue, especially I think if you're a woman, about am I attractive? And you have just, just put yourself out there in that way. Was that something you consciously did? Is it something you think about, or were you just enjoying being you? Or were you making a statement?
Yeah, I think I don't really think about it that hard. I just am me. Um, but yeah, I do think that this is, the best time in the world for women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's better than it's ever been in history. We used to be invisible at these ages. And now we're not, because there's a lot of us, the boomers, and just definitions of what beauty is so much more now than just what you look like, right? And so I think I just try to be the best person I can be. I don't necessarily think I'm sexy or pretty or any of those things. I'm just being me and enjoying the music. And I just have to give it up for my friend and web designer and videographer, Gina Palermo McFarland. She lives in Black Mountain, North Carolina. She did that video and filmed it. And she's always pushing. She's like, you just need to be sexy. You need to be sexy in a car. Men love cars. So just get in a car. And she's right. Okay, I'll do it, But I just am being me and celebrating other women, all women, to feel good about themselves.
And there's another piece too, which is that you have a wonderful characteristic of finding people who are really great at what they do, and then you listen to them.
Well, yes, I do. Like Adam Cole.
Well, you're listening to me because I'm talking to you, but I'm talking about, you work with great arrangers, you have great band people, and I had the pleasure of playing with you a couple times, and I felt very listened to when I was playing with you. I didn't feel like shut up and do it this way. You were paying attention to what I thought, and you obviously you cultivate people that you think are real smart, and you allow them to help you.
Yeah, I just always think I have so much to learn, and like most performers, I'm in search of the truth, and I have a deep insecurity about what I don't know. Insecurity is too strong a word. An awareness of what I don't know, and I want to know more. And it's taken a long time to be okay with the fact that I'm never going to know everything, and I'm never going to be the kind of I'm never going to achieve the apex of what a great singer is for me, but I have moments, and those moments keep me going. You know that, from soloing and stuff, that there's like 150 not bad nights, but just ordinary nights or ordinary gigs. And then there's one or two that you just go, I got there. Tonight I got there. And then you're not there again. But you keep going back. You keep trying. So
Beverly Sills, the opera singer, one of the great opera singers of the 20th century, said,
Bubbles.
She said, I only sang the way I wanted to 5 or 6 times in my career. And
wow.
That's Beverly Sills. You'd never know it listening to her, but that's how she felt. It apparently level and skill has nothing to do with this attitude. If you are, there's something you want to express inside, and you only get there every once in a while, but the rest of the world doesn't have a clue.
That's glorious. Oh, thank you for saying that. That's
sure.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what is that moment for you? Tell me, what does it feel like? What's it like?
I think it's when I listen back to something that I thought was bad, and I go, oh, that sounds pretty good.
So it's more retrospective and not an in the moment thing?
Yeah, I think the in the moment is when you just lose yourself, and I lose all sense of self-consciousness, and I just I just go with it. I just flow, and I'm following you guys playing out of your own heads. And it's just, I've said it's like, it's better than sex. It's better than chocolate. Can I say that? I probably shouldn't.
No, don't say chocolate, please. Please.
It's just better than anything, because I think it just, Yo-Yo Ma says that when he really gets in the zone with music, it's like he's opened up this channel from him to heaven, and there's just no separation, and you are not yourself anymore. You are your God, your spirit. You are just effortless mastery, Kenny Warner. You're just not even thinking about it. And I've had rare occasions of that. And then also, especially as a singer, I don't know if this applies to playing for you, but I've tried to find how to communicate a lot with less, how to say without trying too hard, make your point musically without using a lot of notes, a lot of vibrato, a lot of blah, Bonnie Raitt, to me, was so masterful at that. You listen to I Can't Make You Love Me, and there's no fat on that performance.
Nothing extra.
And yet it breaks your heart. Miles Davis, the same way. It just...
Dolly Parton,
yes. Just stating. Carmen McRae has become one of my favorite jazz singers, because that was her style, was just to sort of state it, and the command of her instrument, and what she had to say, and her phrasing without it being all over the map, harmonically or scatting or anything. I mean, she could do all that.
It's so
That's
tempting,
what I'm going
isn't
for.
it?
Simplicity.
It's so tempting to want to push farther so that people can see you, to validate you, acknowledge how great you are.
Well
And
said.
that's hard it's really much harder to pull back and just give what's necessary. Or you find that?
And recording can allow you to do that. Stage is harder, because like I remember seeing Norah Jones at South by Southwest right before she hit. She was hitting, but she wasn't just the icon she is now. And I left the performance because I was like, yawn, this is boring. But on record, you can't turn it off, Yeah. And I think recording is a whole different animal that can allow for space and quiet in a way performance, at least for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Performance is a very uncertain, and you never know who you're going to be or who your audience is going to be. It's really hard to pull that kind of clarity off in a performance.
Yeah, and I think performing, you should perform. Give them a show, give them a reason that they paid money. I mean, if gigs ever come back, that's, the way I think about it is you should, if you're going to make people leave their house now, you better give them something that they're not going to get through Netflix, And I think all music is going through that, all genres. Classical now is multimedia, jazz is multimedia. The big buzzword now is audience requests and engagement. You got to make it very interactive, and got to make it different. So,
Gwen Hughes, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Oh, Adam, thank you. I got to get my cat. Here's my cat.
Everybody, this is Gwen's cat.
This is Allegro. Say bye, Allegro.
Allegro.
Alley cat. Thank you, Adam. I love you. You are such a beautiful presence out there, and thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.